I'm Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Mike, and welcome aboard to our brand new podcast called Taking Off with Mike and Jen.
In this podcast, we will be diving in and unpacking all the baggage, anything from communication to finances, family dynamics, expectations, and what it looks like to fight or flight.
We have 32 years of marriage and a lot of Christian counseling under our belts. So no matter where you find yourself, whether that's being single, dating, engaged, or married, this podcast is just for you.
Are you ready to take your relationships to new heights?
If so, sit back, relax. We have been cleared for takeoff.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our flight. As you know, this is Michael.
Hello.
And I'm Jennifer. And we have some very special. Now, today we have some first-class guests on.
Oh, this is my first time riding first class.
Yes, it's very
mine
special.
too.
It's very special. So tell us who you are.
My name is Gracie. I know the Marblestones they're my best friend's parents. So I completely just value them so much. I'm so honored to be here. When Miss Jen texted, I was just like, what? Like, you see me as like, you want me on your freaking podcast. Like, that's so cool. So yeah, really excited to be here.
Love it. I'm Jake, and I'm Gracie's husband.
Yeah.
And so I married into the friendship that got us connected to the Marblestones. So super happy to be here.
Yeah.
Well, thanks
Awesome,
for
you
coming,
guys.
yeah.
Well, as you know, relationship podcasts, if you're a frequent flyer or not, and you're here to join us, we appreciate you coming. But it's a relationship podcast, and specifically, we're going to talk about today marriages and young marriages. So you guys have been married 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
It'll
5
be 6
years
in January.
with one child, a 3-year-old,
Yes.
cute as a little button.
Yeah.
And so, you know, being that we're in the airline industry, I always like to use these analogies with turbulence and baggage and this, that, and the other. So just imagine it's a turbulent time and the overhead bins open up and all this baggage comes flying out. That's our goal, is to hit turbulence.
You want me to throw
I
my
checked-
bag
I
at
checked
you?
my bag.
Exactly, because the goal is to get people who have gone through and who will go through what we all have gone through in our lives with everything. All the questions we'll ask you today, we have all gone through them, is to help the audience get through themselves, the baggage, the turbulence. We're going to land at the end safely, but we're going to go through some turbulence and get through, some of this baggage. So, as you know, some of us have more baggage than others.
Yeah, my bag didn't pass the weight check.
Maybe you.
I had to take some out before I came in.
My luggage got lost, actually. It fell out of the
They were like, excuse me, you need to remove your cosmetics.
That's right.
You might have a carry-on bag, or you check 10 of them, but
Yeah.
that's okay. It's all going to the destination. So,
Because everybody has it.
exactly.
Got to remind everyone you're not perfect. Your parents aren't perfect. And we're all just trying to be a little bit better and get through life a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Exactamundo. Awesome. All right. So, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, about your siblings. Open up your family. Are your mom and dad married? What's that look like? Just kind of tell us about that, Gracie.
Grace, me first.
You got it.
So I grew up in a really big family. I have 7 brothers and sisters, but it's really blended. So my parents, when I refer to my mom, she's technically my stepmom, but she met my dad when I was like 7. So she's my mom. She's truly, I always say to her, I don't joke with her, but like, she literally is like Jesus to me in my life, because I'm like, you just are everything. Like, my life without you would have been, I don't even know where I would have been without her. So totally God destined that they met. Just a little shout out, Stacy. Love you, Mom.
Amazing. She's amazing.
She really is amazing. But my parents, they met and got married when I was in 1st grade, and she had 2 kids of her own. My dad at the time was a single parent of 5 kids. This could be a whole story of its own. But my dad, basically, he adopted my biological mom's children. So he was raising 2 kids who weren't his blood, but adopted them. And then he had a half son, and then, or not a half son, a full son, his son, and then my half brother, and then me and my sister. So totally was just rocking it as a single dad of 5 with a lot of help from family. And when he met my mom, it was truly like our lives just got better. Like, when I think about the change, it was just like, oh my gosh, our lives just got better. I had a mom, like, it was awesome. So they got married when I was in 1st grade. And truly, I mean, it was just awesome. They have a little brother, so 8 of us kids, all living in one house at one point.
Brady Bunch.
Brady
Yeah.
Bunch.
Times like
I
10.
know. The age range was at the time, the youngest had just been born and the oldest was in her 20s. So
Wow.
it was crazy. Yeah, it was really cool. I'm right in the middle. If anybody's wondering, got middle child syndrome 100%.
Gotcha.
I'm like, if you have middle child syndrome, I'm like, you have one older brother, one younger sister. I have 4 older brothers.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Wow.
middle of 8. No, but honestly, life was so sweet and it was full. And I really feel like having a big family just prepared me a lot just for meeting new people and just life and understanding that like people are going to have their stuff and there are things that I'm not going to like about people, but it's not always your place to fix them. And I'm just like, my family was not perfect and it's still not perfect. And all of my siblings have their stuff and their things that you look over and you love them and you want them to get better. But anyway, so yeah, 8 brothers and sisters. And now we're all just grown. What was another question?
Well, so let me jump in. So background, and her father is Tim, and he's amazing too.
Yeah, he was amazing.
When we first met Gracie, I mean, I don't even know how old you were.
Yeah, I met you guys. I was in 2nd grade.
So cute.
That's crazy.
To this, I still would get confused if
Yeah.
she'll remember this of the whole siblings and the whole
Oh,
dynamics.
Right.
So one day I'm like, Gracie, can you just write it down?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So her family is so big and so confusing that she literally wrote, we were, I think, at a restaurant, and she took a paper coaster, and she literally wrote,
Like a
remember the
family
tree?
tree.
A
I
family
totally
tree.
remember
Yeah.
that.
I still have that coaster.
It's more like a
That
family
is
garden.
amazing.
No, I still have the coaster, and I took a picture of it because when people ask, I'm like, hold on.
I
And I'll
got
get
you.
in my phone and literally be like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can remember her
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just it was really awesome on the biological side of my family. You know, my family's just gone through a lot with addiction and alcoholism, and I have all of these things that like I've grown up my whole life trying to avoid, and I think it created a lot of like perfectionism and stuff like that. But I don't know. I just think ultimately I'm thankful that seeing all of that and still even dealing with it in my family today, I feel like it's just given me a lot of perspective of just like real life. But what was another thing other than
No,
family?
that's good.
What's interesting about that comes to my mind is with the bigger the family, the more baggage there's going to be because everyone's an individual.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so they're all carrying their own baggage. And of course, as we know, that everyone's baggage falls on you.
Yeah. Well, and
I
it's
mean,
interesting
it's
because
just
you
part of what it
naturally,
is.
it's like I created my own baggage out of not wanting to be like them.
Them,
It's
yes,
like it didn't
yes.
have to be mine. It could have just been like, I don't want that. But I'm like, I don't want to bring alcohol or drugs into my life and my
Yeah.
marriage and me as a parent. Like, I'm like, my mom totally was like, I don't want to be a mom because she wanted to do drugs. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, that has become my baggage in like an avoidant way of like, I so badly don't want to be that person. I'm never going to.
Right.
Rather than it being like, I'm so hurt by it. It's really not that. My life is better because of what has come, like my dad getting remarried and everything. But it's like that avoidant of like,
Oh, sure.
I so badly don't want to do that. I'm sure you understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say too, Gracie's a very strong, as you guys know,
Yes, she
like
is.
stable-minded person.
Mhm.
And so her siblings go to her
Right, like
when
she's
they
the
have
oldest.
exactly.
Oh my
and so they go to her with a lot too. And so she's carrying and processing and like walking
Right.
through a lot of things with them. If they're feeling something or going through something, they're calling her and talking to her about it all. And so
that's a
she's
lot. That's
yeah,
a lot
it
of weight
is.
to carry.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Because you're going to have your own with your own child as time goes on.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you become the fixer, and then that will weigh heavy on you as you move forward. So you have to keep that in check as you get older.
I think as I've gotten older, I'm realizing that more and more a part of my personality. I've
Yeah.
all my life wanted to be like problemless or like worryless. Like, nope, don't worry about me. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'll do my own thing. I am no worries. And now I'm getting older and I'm like, okay, this has definitely created a level of like dependence on me from other people, which I don't mind. But it's more so like, okay, where can I let like my guard down sometimes, you
Right,
know?
Right.
And then, yeah, me being from a family of 10, married to, and I'll,
crazy.
let Jake talk about his family
Yeah.
too. He has just 4. One sister, his parents. And I'm like,
Right.
our perspectives.
How simple, huh?
Yeah, it's like I just grew up so aware that I don't get everything I want. I don't get to have what I want for dinner, or sometimes I do, not in a sad way, but it's
Right.
just like,
It's just how it is.
my mom could not accommodate everybody.
Right.
I'm like, you could only do so much. Like, you have a big pot of spaghetti and that's what you're getting, and you're not getting anything else.
It's so interesting. It
So
really
yeah,
is.
I mean, that definitely has come into like our lives of just expectations of like,
Yeah.
I'm so used to just living my life around so many other opinions and people that it's like, I'm good.
I love though
just
that you're
over here.
becoming more self-aware of
Oh,
these
yeah.
things about yourself, because that is what equals growth.
Yeah, I think having a kid makes you realize
Oh, yeah.
the
They're gonna
experience
throw
you
it right
want
in
to
your
give
face, whether
them.
They mean to or not.
Yeah, no, and it's like you just realize all of these tendencies. It's like as adults, it's kind of easy to look over your tendencies because you're with another adult who is capable of hearing you and understanding and hearing you say,
Communicating.
I'm sorry. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to do that. This is what I meant. But my 2-year-old child,
Right.
when I say, I'm sorry I blew up on you, I was
Right.
dealing with
She's-
childhood things.
Right.
She's like, she's like, give
That's-
me a snack.
Right.
Okay.
That's
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
So funny.
I have
is
more
funny.
questions for you, but let's hear from Jay.
Yes. So family, like Gracie said, there's just 4 of us. It's me, my sister, my mom, and my dad. I would say growing up, it was like honestly pretty typical, a family of 4, brother and a sister. My sister's older, so she was like kind of the shining star, if you will. Like she got all the school stuff down, and then I was just like the very fun, outgoing, energetic. I was the entertaining one. Yes, I was like I loved the attention, all that kind of stuff. But I would say as far as like family dynamic, growing up, we kind of experienced my parents divorced each other a couple of times. I actually don't know the official numbers, so I can't say exactly how
So
many.
literally on paper,
Yeah.
divored a couple times,
Yes.
got remarried.
You guys should have them on. That would be a story.
forgot about that. I
Wow.
forgot.
But yeah, so like on top of that, as they were dealing with their things, there was a few times that they would even just split. But then there was like, the legal divorce.
And this is
that
during
happened.
them raising you.
Yeah.
Like growing up, mom and dad are divorced again.
Yeah. The
Mom and
first
dad are
time,
married.
the first time I don't remember.
Okay.
It was their
Yeah, what were
last.
your ages? What do you
I
remember?
actually
It's
don't.
like elementary into early
Oh,
middle.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The last one that I remember, I was in, I think 6th grade, maybe. Yeah, I think it was 6th grade. They worked everything out every time and got back together. The last time, it's crazy. We were actually invited to a church, and that church, my dad was also invited to. And so my parents got reconnected there. Got counseling and all that kind of stuff, got back together, and our family was put back together. And so, really crazy story. But yeah, I would say from there, it just kind of grew, and it's just like a normal family. I don't,
Normal.
yeah.
Just a couple
Less
divorces in
to
between.
manage.
Yeah. But I would say like my sister and I are pretty close. We all live right here within 30 minutes of each other. And so we see each other often. And yeah, we're just, I would say just a typical
Right.
suburban
All
family.
American
Yeah,
family.
exactly.
So this is going to be for both of you, and you can just answer whoever wants to go. But so I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this is a perfect segue just based on what you said. But were your mom and dad a good example of marriage and a relationship? I mean, what you just said
Yeah.
is like, holy smokes. They got divorced twice. They got remarried. So in one respect, no. In another respect, they stayed in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a, like, I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think-
because drama, divorce, marriage, like, well, okay.
Yeah. I think in the most respectful way, I could say it's admirable that they were able to work through things, right? But there are aspects that like Gracie and I have talked about that from both sets of parents. There are things that we want to take into our marriage, and there are things that we don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are things that we want to like learn from and then also pass on to our kids. Because I'm sure as Milo gets older, she's going to look at us and be like, I do not want that from my parents.
Yeah.
Because we're a bit sassy and we kind of like to be a little bit cutthroat at each other, but we can apologize and we can move on from it.
Yeah.
But Milo is a pretty like sensitive, like kid, and so maybe she won't want that in her marriage, right? And so, but I think that there are a lot of things that she will love. We like to do a lot together. The three of us are kind of inseparable. If it's going to the grocery store, all three of us are going, and I hope that that's something that she wants to take into her family as she gets older. So I think in the most respectful way, like I said, we'll take some and we'll leave some.
Yeah. And I'll say, and let me caveat, if you don't want to add this, let's cut this. I'll say one way that his parents' story that we have had to work through in our marriage, honestly, is early on. And I would say this really was still being worked on up to like a year ago. I think we had like a bigger breakthrough on it, is that Jake assumed every fight meant I didn't want to be with him. Like, if we fight, my wife wants to leave me. Or if we fight,
makes perfect sense to what happened, what he grew up seeing.
Anything that was, his family is very, and these are things that, again, you give and take what you want from your families, and what works for others doesn't work for some people. My family is very communicative when there's problems. My parents were always very quick to say, hey, we noticed something's up, and you talk about it. His family is a little bit more like, in one way, I admire that they're able to forgive and move on so quickly. I am such a processor that I'm like, I want to talk about this. I feel tension. I want to talk about it. So I would say that like the biggest thing that we have been working on through that is that like when we fight or when we have discussions, I really have to remind him a lot, like, hey, we're married forever. Like this conversation is going to make us better. I don't want to leave you. Like we're not going to, fighting doesn't equal divorce. Like, and I think him growing up, his young mind, I think saw that, because obviously he doesn't know all of the depths of their divorces and their conversations and what was going on. And there's so much meat under there that we don't need to unpack. It's not ours to do that. But I think in his brain, he naturally thought conflict equals don't want to be together. Yeah. And so whether it be like someone's going to leave me or they just don't want me, I think it was just a little bit of that we've honestly had to work through, me having to do a lot of reminding, like, hey, I can talk to you and it not be like, I don't have any thoughts about our marriage.
Well, and I'm an overly emotional person. She is not.
I'm a bit more like analytical.
Yeah, exactly. And so when we face those conversations, she's like, hey, let's just talk about what happened. And I go silent because I am spiraling in my mind of like, okay, don't cry. Is she mad? Is she like, is this a flaw that she thinks that she can't get? You know what I mean? Like I just start processing all of these things.
And if you want my honest opinion, how he said he's the entertainer, he was like the family peacemaker. So he was always thinking, how do I control how everybody reacts?
A song always helps.
But this is
no, but I think that I mean, to answer your question, I think that nails it. It's just the difference in our like communication style growing up and having to work through that and learn that and understand that like, arguing is not the end all be all.
Like you can talk about things. Even if the moment is not peaceful itself, it can lead to a place where there's so much more understanding. You know?
I can remember, and it's so funny because it can happen both ways. So I was left a lot, abandoned, so to speak. But yet I've turned more into the fighter now. But it took a while to the point where now we don't do it anymore. But we used to be able to say to each other, I don't like you at all right now. Like I really don't like you. I love you, but I don't like you. And these are reasons why. We'll talk about it later. But no one's going anywhere. If he would have said that to me early on, I would have been like just a wreck. Just a wreck. So that's so neat that you're digging into that at this young age.
Well, and you guys realizing basically, Gracie, you're the fighter and you're the flight. You want to fly away because there's pain and like, I just don't want this. And you're like, well, we just need to do it at some point. So let's just get it done. Realizing that about yourself is the key, right? Because then okay, I know how she is. I know how he is. I know how he's feeling. I want to be sensitive to that, but I also know she's not one that wants things undone. Like, let's get it done. So maybe it's like, okay, go flight for an hour, but then we're going to hash this out. So you can think, you can process, and then that it's not undone. We're going to get to it. So and that's a huge thing, is understanding that, right?
And my thing I always have to work on, I brought my journal because I literally was reading yesterday and I saw this in Proverbs, and it was just like perfect for me of like, I can get really...
giggle.
I know.
I can get regretful in my words if I'm fighting in the moment. I can
For
get
easy, right?
Yeah,
Super easy.
It is. Oh, and literally, like, not to like go so deep. I
Go
mean,
for it.
we all love God here. But in Proverbs 10, it says, "Where there are many words, sin is unavoidable. The one who controls his lips is prudent." And prudent literally means showing care and thought for the future.
Right.
And so I always try to think like, I am the fighter, 100%. I'm going to want to talk about it. I need to like have the self-control to know, is now the time? And for him, because I know that he's more emotional in the conversation, am I ready to have the conversation in a way that's not going to make him feel like, how can I not necessarily tiptoe around his emotions? It's not that.
Well, it's caring for him.
Yeah, it's like, I want to have this
Yeah.
conversation in a way that makes sense to both of us.
Yeah,
I want to,
exactly.
yes, because if I were to do it how I want, it's going to fly over his head and he's going to be terrified of me.
Well, and that
Truthfully.
proverb just
Right.
warns you, don't do it your way, the
Don't
flesh
do
way,
it.
right?
Right.
Don't
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
it your
Think
way.
about
It's
the
not going to go
future.
over well. Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so that's, I mean, on our fight or flight, he's very, I call him my escapee. Like, I'm like, you're an escape artist. You're like, I don't like this
Houdini.
moment. I want to leave and I want to move to Europe and never deal with this again.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm
Run.
like, no, let's dig in right now.
Yeah, and I think on a practical level, we've had to figure out how to even start those conversations, because originally it would be like, "Are you crying?" And then that would just like make the other even
you
more
mad?
mad. Or
I'm
"Are you
like,
mad?" And it's like,
"Oh,
"Well,
no,
yeah,
I
thanks
am."
for noticing." So we've started asking each other, "Hey, are you building a wall?" And that would honestly allow for one of us to say like,
And building wall essentially means
That's
like, is
good.
there something you're not talking
yeah,
about?
like, are you
Right.
blocking yourself off right
Yeah.
now because of
Whatever.
something? And it could have been something so passive that like you didn't even realize. And so we've been asking each other that if we feel like, hey, one feels a little bit off right now, what's going on, without being like, are you mad?
Right.
And it's like,
'Cause it's
well,
like,
I am
I'm
now.
out.
Yeah. And so we just, like, I think very practical. We ask each other that because it allows for space to, if you need time,
Yeah.
that's fine. But we're not going to like allow you to build a whole freaking city to where you like have blocked me out completely.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's just been helpful for us to like put language around how to even address that without it feeling so attacky.
Yes. Boy, that's so good.
So our views, I know mine especially, has changed a lot from the way that I looked at my parents' marriage growing up to now, if I look backwards, I see two different things. That was normal for me, what I saw growing up. My dad was a total flight guy. My mom was more of a fighter. And so she would probably edge towards the, okay, I'll just let him fight. In other words, there would never be any fighting. There would never be any discussions. So all I saw was peace. But in reality, total dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look back at it now, I realize, oh, I would have said, yeah, when I met her, oh, my parents had a great marriage, blah, blah, blah.
You did say that.
Peaceful.
Other than
Total
the
crap.
divorce
Yeah.
later.
And then they got divorced after 32 years.
Oh, wow.
But the point is, and I guess my question to follow up, which you kind of have answered, is just, do you look backwards now and see your parents' marriage differently than you did as you were
child,
going
yeah.
through it growing up? Because all you knew is what you knew.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you look backwards, like, holy smokes,
Yeah.
because we're doing it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is why we're doing it differently.
Yeah.
Because now I look backwards.
I think I see it somewhat similar, but I think as I've gotten older, I've learned what I want. So like when I was younger, what I was experiencing, it was just experience. It
Yep.
wasn't, I wasn't thinking about
Sure.
what am I going to use from this? What am I not?
You weren't
And
going
I wasn't
processing. You're just
processing
doing
it at all.
You're just doing.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
just like, this is good. I'm thankful. I'm whatever, they have their things, but it was more just like something that I was involved in rather than something I was learning from. I don't
Sure.
think at 13 I was like, wow, look at how well my parents
Right,
just had that
right.
conversation.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't care. So when I look back, I think I just analyze it more than I did
Sure.
then, rather than see it differently, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're just
Uh,
taking time to take it in and
Yeah,
look
just
at
kind of when I notice myself do something,
it. Yeah.
I put a lot more thought to,
Mm-hmm.
can I remember a time growing up that would have made me act this way? Am I learning? Am I picking up things
Right.
that I don't like about myself in my marriage from what I saw? Or is this just me? So I can't say that I see it so differently. I think I'm just a lot more bird's eye view, like a bit more of a processor now over what I saw than, But I mean, then the early days when my parents got divorced and stuff, all of that I was 7. I had no clue. But now I look back and I have thoughts. And I mean, I didn't grow up thinking my dad was like so strong or so this. But now as an adult, I'm like, I am in awe of my parents. I mean, my mom was 28 when she married my dad and became a mom of 7. Yeah. That was just
crazy.
That was when I was a kid. It was just like, yay, I have a mom to go to field trips with me. But like now I'm like, I'm her age when she did that. And like,
can you imagine?
I am just in awe of like the sacrifice I think my parents gave for us.
Yeah.
But that's more of just like a mature mind processing it all rather than like seeing it different.
So it gives you a new perspective and love for Stacy now because of what now you can look back and see what she was going through.
100%.
That's incredible.
I cannot imagine.
Take the next one.
Okay. So what have been some reoccurring challenges that has been in your relationship, you know, things that you just can't put to bed yet? And I mean, how do you handle them?
How many do you want?
As many as you want to give us. As many as you want to give us.
You go ahead.
She answered.
I would say one, and we've kind of touched on it, that I would say is like a constant conversation, somewhat of like a hurdle. How did you phrase it?
Reoccurring challenges.
Reoccurring challenge is really just kind of what we were saying about, I'm fidgeting with a pen.
She can hear it click.
Yeah.
Right?
I know. Is just that like humble and open discussion and decision of what are we gonna like, how are we gonna treat our marriage? Like, I don't want to coast through this. And there are things you know about marriage and that you learned about marriage that you want to keep, that you don't want to keep. Like, it is truly just like kind of having those frequent check-ins and very honest conversations with trying to not get offended of like, this is going on between us and I don't like it. Like, I would say it's been 5 years, so we're still so new at this.
Totally.
And it has gotten better, obviously, but being able to be honest about like, I had one recently, I mean, in the past year where I said like, I don't like what's going on in our marriage right now. Like, I don't like this. This is not what I wanted. You're what I wanted, but what's going on right now is not what I wanted. And so I would say a hurdle is being able to just keep learning how to like have those really honest moments of like, I want this to be different, but I still want it to be you. Like, and just really working through that in a way that's like futuristic and like fruitful without being detrimental.
Yeah. Well, you guys I think you're doing so great because you get married. And a lot of people, they don't purposely think it consciously, but they just think, okay, I love you and it's just going to be.
Yeah.
But you guys are trying to be very purposeful in your journey of marriage.
Yeah.
And that is, listeners, very important. It's very important because you can't just float when something's a little off or you have to be able to have that open communication with your person.
Because it's going to happen.
Yeah. And because if you don't, it's going to keep happening. Yeah. And then 10 years later, you're going to be in some huge fight over something little. Totally. Because all those things.
Well, and I'll say like kind of on that same thing, I would say something that we both deal with is like a feeling we can both get very resenty easily, you know, even in a light way. Like when you have a brand new baby and I resent that you can go and work out and do whatever you want. And I'm like breastfeeding around the clock and doing all the, there's like miniature feelings of resentment that can grow into like big ones. And when I had that moment where I was like, I am so not happy with like what's going on right now, it was like little. So I would say like resentment is something, that we both, I don't want to say struggle with. It's just something
it's just apparent. Yes. Well, and we've learned that when one of us is feeling a certain type of way and you bring, like if she was to bring that feeling to me, like, hey, I feel like since we've had Milo, I'm breastfeeding around the clock. I'm having to do like naps and things like that. And you're able to have that freedom to go around. It's not my turn to be like, well, I think that when you do this, it makes me feel like that. Right. It's like, it's her turn to share her feelings because that's what will create more resentment because then I become defensive, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not caring for or listening to her feelings. I'm trying to throw back onto her what she's done to hurt my feelings. Right. Not the time. Right. And so it's like, in order to like keep that open flow of communication, I have to earn her trust. She has to earn mine, and we take turns. Yeah. If she's coming to me because she feels something, it's not my turn to like
in that moment
to dump on her and be like, well, this is how I feel about this. And it's like,
It's like,
okay, well, I'm just trying to tell you how I feel first.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
everyone just wants to be heard. That's the problem.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not a problem, but it is a problem. But it's just when.
Yeah. I think it's funny because we were all at a wedding together.
Aaron's wedding?
Yes.
Aaron?
I don't remember how long ago it was, but we were talking about while they were doing their photos, how interesting it is that as young people get as people get married at such a young age, we were saying their vows are such an interesting thing to do at your wedding.
I know, I'm like,
right? Obviously.
Now. I was like 21.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. We were like, because remember, they read off their vows and you and I were talking about it and we were like, how crazy is it that at 20 years old, well, how old were we? I
was 21.
Yes. And I was 24. And we were sitting there like, till death do us part in sickness and health. I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
I'm like, I didn't know how this man acted with a cold.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm like, you should have to like, yes, like obviously you're making a commitment and a promise. And I stand by those vows 100%. We did our own. And so we obviously did the traditional ones, but we read to each other what it meant on that day to us.
On that day.
Yes. On that day. And so as I look back, I'm like, 5 years? Yes. Then you could be like in sickness and in health and this and that because you've been through
already stuff.
A significant period of time together where you can say like, hey, I've been there when you were your sickest or when like, right now, like I like just recently quit my job. And so we are having to work through richer or poorer because it's like our life has, because our life has completely changed, right? Like
exactly.
And so, but we did make that commitment, but we hadn't lived through that richer or poorer period of our life yet to understand, are we going to actually make it through? Yeah. And so it's just funny to think like,
that's so good.
They need to do richer or poorer when inflation comes and goes. I'm like, I meant it then in 2019.
Yeah, if anyone's listening that
was a joke,
single or about ready to get married, that's such a good idea to do kind of what you did. Say what you feel in those moments and then maybe have your pastor then do the typical vows because you really don't know. You're just in la la land that you're getting married. You're just
if I went back and
what they said.
Yeah, if I went back and read my vows, they were la. I was like, I love you. I'll be like, but that's what 2 years of dating meant to us at that point. And I was making a commitment that I stand on even to today.
Sure. Yeah.
But I didn't, again, we had never lived together.
Yeah. I was going to say, most of us as believers don't live together before you're married. I'm like, I've seen you for 5 hours a day for 2 years.
But that's it. It's a big change.
There's a lot that goes on in those other 19 hours a day.
But I will say too, to give a second answer to that question, I think one of the things that we like, that's been kind of a constant thing for us is every 2 years of us knowing each other, we've had a significant life change. I either moved across the country, she moved out there across the country to be with me. We got married. We moved back across the country. We both started new jobs. We bought a house. We had a kid. Like we had significant life change every 2 years of our marriage. Sometimes a lot of those happened within the same year. And so I think Gracie and I know about ourselves that like one of the things we like is for things to feel fresh and new. I mean, we're at 2.5 years of living here in Georgia with our family. And that was the purpose of us leaving North Carolina to move here was because we wanted to raise our daughter near our families. But we're kind of getting that itch again of like, where do we want to go next? Because as great as it is to be near family, we love our independence. And so we're trying to figure out what does like, and this is like one of those constant struggles that we face in our marriages. What does it feel like to be present without being just like completely stagnant and like giving up? Because right now it feels like I'm not working. She's working as much as she can to keep our family afloat. And like, we want to move. We have a desire to be in Florida. We want to be near friends. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Being near family served its purpose in this time, but we're ready for like something new.
Adventures.
Yeah,
exactly.
I would say in a statement, we kind of struggle with I think we overanalyze and overthink what it feels like to be like content and fulfilled from life. Like, what does that feel like? And where does that come from? And when will I feel that? Do I feel it now? And I just like am overthinking it? I don't know. And so it's kind of just like, we're always talking about like, we're so blessed. We're so blessed to be near family. Totally. We're so blessed with health and a home and our daughter and jobs and whatever. There's so many blessings, but we both overthink that feeling of where are we going to end up? What's our purpose,
100%.
to get, like, there's so many purpose-filled things that we're a part of right now.
Right.
But I would say that we really overthink and kind of wonder what's going to be the thing in life that makes us like, this feels full, this feels everything. And then my analytical side is like, we've been married for 5 years. I'm 27. I might not feel that yet. Like, I'm in my 20s. Like, it might not be here yet. But I think that we're very big, like, daydreamers and constantly seeking out what's going to be the next exciting thing. Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? Who are we going to become?
Right.
And I think it makes us not very present all the time. And I would say that's a struggle that we like both deal with. It's just like not making the most of where we're at.
Yeah.
Just in life, because we're constantly like,
I'm super glad you brought that up, because that to old people like us.
Hey.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Because you guys have grown up. You guys have grown up so differently than people in their 50s, where life was just boring. And so there was nothing. There was no adventures.
If it was better than boring, you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah. And so you just, it was what it was. And so you didn't have these abilities. Right now, it's like when we were growing up, there was just a road. You guys are like, okay, there's 6 roads. I don't know which one to take.
Right.
They're all fun.
So true.
And that's nice to have that option. But at the same time, it's kind of nice not to have options, because then you can just dig in and you can be content. And that's just a function of, I guess, the blessings of, everybody as we get older. I mean, as time goes on in America, everyone just has more, has more chances, abilities just to be able to move, and jobs and the flexibility. But it's also a little bit of a curse in a way.
There's something there, blessing in the boring. Somebody, a pastor somewhere, take that title for your next message.
You're welcome.
There's blessing in the boring. You're welcome.
It's true. You do have to learn to be content. I think no matter, obviously, you guys know this, whatever situation you're in. And I feel like, if I can speak for both of us, I think.
I don't know if you can.
Well, I'm gonna.
Just go for it.
I'm gonna. And
Let's
you better
see if
agree
she
with
can.
me. No, I'm kidding. No, I feel like, for myself too, you want to get yourself to a place of contentment no matter what, and simmer. Just simmer in that. But always have that prayer of, God, this is also how you created me, to be adventurous and this, that, and the other. What does that look like to you? Because if it looks like maybe we'll move and a door opens, step through it. Maybe it's a different type of a job, or a different type of adventure, working with maybe youth, or whatever it is that your passion or your heart is. And I think I just feel like having that contentment is going to soothe, not necessarily take away the adventure side, but at least soothe it, because now you're like, God, I'm good, because this is where you have us right now. This is where you have us, and I'm okay with this.
Right.
And then sometimes that's when the doors start opening, and you're like, I'm walking right through.
Yeah, exactly. I think
it's
we're feeling.
It's hard to do that. It's hard to live that.
It is.
I think we're feeling that right now, because I would say, like, within the last 2 years, whenever we left North Carolina, Gracie and I were both working at a church out there. And so when we decided to move, that was a really big decision for us, because all I've known was full-time ministry.
And our whole marriage, another thing, our whole marriage had been away from family.
Exactly.
So that was something we knew, we were just changing the whole dynamic of our lives, of our marriage.
And that independence too, you've got family a stop sign away, and then you've got, family that's 20 minutes away. And so it's interesting, because it's like we made that big decision to go from ministry to, like, I'm just going to get a job somewhere because we want to be close to family, and I don't know what that looks like. And I've been operating in this, like, unfulfilling career space, and it felt like, okay, how do I just keep getting more? Because more money to us meant more experience, or more, like, trips, or a house, or we could get a new car, or whatever that looked like. And we did that, yet we weren't feeling super fulfilled. So that's what you were saying. We had all 6 roads, and we were cruising down all the different lanes, but none of them were necessarily getting us to the right space. And I got to a point where, thankfully, like, she was saying, hey, you're not at your best mental state right now. I think you should quit your job. And I did. And I'm, getting time with my family and my daughter, and rediscovering what, like, my passion and my purpose is. And thankfully, like, the Lord has brought me back into ministry, and I have the chance to step back into that. But it wasn't until like we were able to like talk through that and slow down and find a little bit of that like peace and the complacency in a positive
got us
light.
to a point where we were like, this is where we're at. We've got family to help us with our daughter. We've got an amazing home that, you know, is such a blessing. We have like life in a sense is made right now. Like we're good. And I really do try to get myself to a place of, you know, if this was it forever, I want to be good. I want to be able to produce fruit and be content and be happy with this if this was all I had forever. Right. But naturally we deal with like the fear of
I'm like, please don't be forever.
Like that constant tug and pull of like, is this forever? This is scary. Or if this is forever, God, if this is all you have for me, then I want to be able to like still glorify you through it.
Exactly.
It's like a constant tug.
Do you think, Gracie, that growing up in a really big family and kind of that scenario of I just had to eat spaghetti and that was that, or whatever.
It was good spaghetti, by the way.
Yeah,
that's funny.
That you are desiring more because that more wasn't there growing up, or not?
I think it's more so. I always grew up kind of like, I can do my own thing. Like I didn't go to traditional like academic college after high school. I went to professional makeup school and I moved out at a really early age and I had a career very early. Like I grew up quick, not because I had to. I mean, my parents are amazing. I wasn't booted or anything. I just did that. I started working at 18 and fully had a career by the time my friends were graduating college. And so I think for me, it's more so just that of like, I know I can do whatever I want. Like I've done it my whole life. Like I can do this if I want to. Why not do the things I want? But now being older, being married, we have a daughter, there's more things to weigh the decision, I think is what like makes it hard. I think I don't know. I think I've just felt that feeling my whole life of I can figure out how to get what I want. Like I can figure out how to make my way and do the things I dream of. I wanted to go to makeup school. I went to makeup school. I wanted to move to the city. I moved to the city. I wanted to do this. I did this. I've just kind of like put my mind to stuff and just done it. And so this for the first time, and even like early in our marriage, we were like, we want to move back home and we want to work at this church. And thank God we got jobs there. And we had really amazing, it just has felt like my whole life, I've kind of in the least spoiled way possible, I can say, like I've kind of figured out how to do the things I wanted to do. Right. And so now being at this place where
it's not happening.
It's either not happening or it comes with bigger decisions. I'm thinking what's best for my daughter. Like it's not just me doing what I want. It's not just me moving to a cool place because I want to.
Exactly.
It's like, oh gosh, like it's hard when you're thinking about
people.
Yes.
Yeah. And it feels selfish to like pray for and ask God for those specific things. Cause like right now, like the three of us are like, our little family is awesome. But the way that Gracie and I desire to be near people that we can go and have coffee with or dinner with or invite to our house is crazy. And we know that God knows that.
We had a really amazing community in North Carolina. Yeah. Moving home for family, we left that. And so that's been like a big missing chunk.
And so I think that we just like, we can't dismiss those things either and just act like those desires that are in our heart like aren't there. And it's hard because it's like, well, does mom and dad getting friends come at the cost of like our daughter not being near grandparents? Like that's a weighty decision.
Yeah.
Like that's one that like we honestly like cry over at least once a week because we're like that feels wrong.
And by we, he means I.
Her, because I'm like, let's pack the bags. But it's like, that's a weighty decision because you want what's best for your kid, but also like to be great parents. Like I want Milo to see us growing up having friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's so hard. That is hard. I mean, we moved out here, as you know, had nobody. I mean, his sister lives here, but downtown. And so when we started having kids, I mean, we had no and that's all I wanted was my kids to be around my family. That's all I wanted. And so I was reverse in that. Like I was like, oh, look at all these people that have their grandparents with their kids. And we literally we picked up some fake grandparents who we're still friends with today, Bampa and Auntie Carol. We don't see them that much anymore, but we do check in like once a year and we see them. But that's hard. But as time went on and the years went by, God knew what was best. I needed to be away from California.
Yeah.
So I got transplanted, and it was the best thing for our family.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we made friends and, you know,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I know, and that's the hard part is like, you know, in the future, life is going to become what it is. And, you know, we're going to look back and be like, man, I can't believe we overthought that so
Right.
much.
And
Like,
remember, kids are so resilient.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're so resilient. And you guys are great parents.
Yeah.
And so I think whatever you do, personally, you're sitting at my table, I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't worry too much about Milo.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because no matter where you move or where you go, you're going to foster friendships that she's going to have.
Mhm.
And she's still so young, too. She's not going to remember a
Totally.
whole lot.
Yeah.
But, you know,
It's easy.
I
to-
think as a young couple though, like to other young couples that are listening as well, I think it's important to recognize, like Gracie said, she was 21,
yeah.
I was 24. We had a kid at what? I don't even remember how old
I
I
was
was.
25.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we're looking back at all of our friends and community in Charlotte right now, and they're just getting married or just having kids.
Okay.
And we have an almost 3-year-old.
Yeah.
So there were periods of time, there still are periods of time that it is comparison, like in circumstances where we're like, gosh, our friends are like going off to Hawaii and they're doing trips together and, you know, going here to do a marathon in this city. And like the way we would love to go and do that,
Right.
we can't.
Yeah.
And
Different stages.
that's hard, but we wouldn't trade or change anything about our lives, but we decided to make that decision early. And so it's like that hard game, especially in Christian culture where you're like, I want to get married young because I want the family and I want this and I want that. And that's beautiful. And you should do that if that's what you desire and it all falls into place. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with it being when you're 27, 28, 29,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that's also okay. We have
Yeah.
friends that they're just got their first house or they're just getting married or they're just now finding out that they're having a baby and they're 28, 29, 30 years old. And that's where we're at right now in life. And they didn't miss out on anything either.
Yeah.
Right.
And I, for some reason, just had this whole idea of like, I would say to her, I want us to have 2 kids and be done by the time I'm 30. Well, that's in 6 months. So
Oh my God,
that's
like-
not happening.
Yeah.
But I'm so
You need to
glad.
tell us
Oh
about
I'm
my
like, then
gosh.
you should have married someone the same
No,
age as you.
but I'm so glad that
Right.
that's not happening because I'm like right now, like, oh my gosh, could you imagine bringing a second kid in right now?
No.
I can't even imagine sometimes doing it with one.
No.
But it's like, it's so hard. And I'm not even going to do the whole cliche of social media because that's just like, we get it.
yeah.
But it is hard, you know, as a young adult to look at
To see what
marriage
other
and
people are
life
doing.
and see
Oh,
what other
sure.
people are doing. And even our best friends, they're our best friends. And I compare myself to some of our best friends that I'm like, oh man, like
Yeah.
2 of our best friends, they just had babies at the exact same time. And I'm like, gosh, if we could have like a friend here that like, you know what I mean? Like that would be so cool. But I'm so happy for them. But it's hard not to think about what would our life look like if that was us still living in Charlotte?
Yeah.
Why did we move from Charlotte?
Right.
Was that a mistake? Oh man. Like it's so hard
Just
not to do
constantly
that.
Evaluating.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just hearing Jake saying since he didn't have a job, maybe he needs to get on with an airline, and then you guys have the benefits and
He
go
would
wherever
be
you want.
amazing.
Wait, that actually be
Flight
so
attendant,
fun.
I mean, I just it
Cookies or
occurred to me.
pretzels,
It
cookies
just
or
occurred to
pretzels,
me,
cookies or
yeah.
pretzels.
No more peanuts. Everyone's allergic.
That's true.
What's your recruitment bonus, ma'am?
So,
0.
so
She's like, you should be a flight
contentment,
attendant. Cha-ching,
Wish I had one.
$5,000.
contentment is probably the hardest thing that we go through, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, and you guys have already said, though, that if you look back 5 years and all the same things are coming out of your mouth about, let's do this. And then you go fast forward 5 years and then you look backwards and then it all becomes more clear on, man, I'm glad it happened that way. Or I'm glad this happened this way. But now you're then looking forward 5 years.
Yeah.
Totally.
So in 5 years, if we sat down, you would go backwards and say, gosh, why did I think that?
Yeah.
Or I'm so glad that it happened that way. We do that every 5 years. It's like we look backwards, and then every single time, I think it's another screw in the contentment, department of, okay, we learn from that. We can be content. And so we become more and more content the older we get because we're able to look backwards and see how God
Yeah. What came
Yeah.
from it?
just made it happen the way they did. The open
Yeah.
doors happened when they did, and the closed doors happened when they did. But you have to look backwards, and you have to,
Right.
take a look at it and see, okay, this totally makes sense. Now I have to trust going forward and looking 5 years this is going to make sense as well. And so I can chill a little bit.
Totally.
But
And it's hard because, as you kind of talked about, the social media, we have so much access to seeing what everyone else is doing, how they're experiencing life. There's also more money so that people have choices.
Yeah, totally.
It used to be like, well, you guys can just get up and go do something if you want. In the past, you just didn't have that option.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I'm in jail for 50 years. I'm going to be content. I'm going to find joy in this. Where you're always now, including us, you could say, well, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, because we have options. And so to stay content in a position of having options, that's super hard. That's really, really hard.
Yeah.
All right.
Even though go ahead. While you're looking at the next question, even though we love our community, we've been here like 30 years. Nicholas is 28. Took me a few years to get pregnant, so 30, 31 years.
Yeah, that's a whole nother
But I've been
conversation
stirring
that.
for a while. I'm always like, oh, honey. And, as you know, both our kids live in Nashville now.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. It's like 3 and 15 minutes if you're driving really fast. But, it's nice. But I'm always like, oh, I love Nashville. Nashville's a great, big, little city. Everything's close.
Yep.
Atlanta, as we know, everything is spread out. We're always, let's go somewhere to lunch. And you're like, oh, we're somewhere decent, healthy, and hip and cool.
It's an hour and a half away. Yeah.
Or whatever. So I'm always like, should we sell our house and let's move? But then we have 2 kids that aren't married yet. So when they find their people, what if they end up somewhere? And then we're, we don't want to leave that community. So, that's always just on my mind too, of just, okay, well, we're just going to be like here for now. We'll see what happens. I don't know.
I know. I know that we're going to move on from this, but I always try to shift my perspective of realizing how blessed and privileged I am to even think that there are more options for me.
So true.
Like there
mindset.
are so many people who are like, this is my life forever, or my life is only going to get worse. They don't have either the options or even the hope, know?
Correct.
And so I just try to even in those moments where I'm like, I want something so different. I feel so uninspired.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, what a freaking blessing it is to feel like I could achieve that. Like that's a blessing in itself to have that mental space.
Right.
So.
Yeah, totally. And I'll even counter what I said earlier. I think that's the beauty of social media as well, because I mean, that's how we met.
Social media.
No.
I love it.
But that's how that's how we met, was on social media. And kind of. And I think that like, even that, it gives us hopes and dreams and things to look forward to, because I see the possibilities, right? Like, I love the fact that I can connect with a church in another state, and that could be the potential door that opens and gets us there. I love that, Jade and Nicholas live in another state, but like, I can stay connected to what they're doing because of that. And so I think that it is also such a blessing as well.
Yeah. The world's open.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so we kind of got away from the first 7 years of your life, because I have this burning question in my
I've been
mind.
seeing it.
Burning fire.
Yeah, because, those are so informative from 0 to 7. And then you got into this big family where there was whatever there was, right? Lots of kids, lots of different lives within those kids. But those first 7 years, when did your mom leave?
Yeah, so it's interesting. If there's a therapist listening to this and you want to be my free therapist, please hit me up. Grace Barker Bell on Instagram. Give you my number. I'm just joking. But yeah, so I was...
And then how does that affect your marriage, that chunk of time?
Yeah.
And how that little Gracie
It's interesting.
into
Backwards a little bit.
It's interesting because there's a whole phenomenon right now of like tapping in with your childlike self. But I have like really kind of blocked memories of all of that. I really do. I don't know if it's blocking out trauma or if it's that I just don't really remember this person, my biological mom. But it was, so my parents were married, and I mean, I might have some of this even wrong. I really don't know. I think that the first time they split, I was 3 or 4. My mom struggled really badly after I was born with alcohol and drug use, and just started getting involved with the wrong crowds. And when she got pregnant with my younger sister, she didn't want to be pregnant, and that kind of spiraled. And, my younger sister was born with fetal alcohol syndrome. So, I mean, that can say a lot about my mom when she was pregnant. My dad ended up having to put her in an institution while she was pregnant because she was not taking care of herself and stuff like that. But honestly, I have no memory of it. Most of my memories with her start when her and my dad split and I would go and see her, but she was still very heavily into drugs and alcohol. I was like 7-ish, 8-ish, right when he met my mom. But I mean, it's interesting, and I could probably truly talk to somebody about it. I have honestly no memories of it. And I think that's part of maybe why I'm so protective over Milo's like childhood now and like so overthinking doing the right thing for her. Cause I'm like, I mean, my dad did the best he could, but I didn't have a mom when I was 2 thinking like, what's the best thing for her in her future? So it's more so like missed memories. Like I'm thinking, I don't know what she thought about me when I was that little. I have no idea.
Do you think that fighting attitude, that spirit that you have completely was born out of those first few years? Because you had to have seen
surely
so much junk, right?
Surely.
Yeah.
So much is informative for a child under, as you know, reading under those years, that God's protection over you maybe block the memories for a while, and maybe there will be a counselor listening
please
to unlock some of that. It can be helpful.
I think it could, I think it could be part of the reason why I'm so like, and Jake could attest to this, I'm very much like, I want to understand everything that's going on right now.
Yeah.
And I think maybe from a young age, I mean, I don't have memory of it. I might have seen and heard things I didn't understand, but I knew that there was tension around it. And that's all I knew. I knew that I knew what it was like creating in the house, but I didn't know what was happening because I'm very much that way. If there's a feeling between us, if there's a feeling I have, I'm like, let's get to the root of this. Like, I want to know what is going on. What did I say? What happened? Like, I want to get to the root of this feeling in our home right now, or this feeling between us. And I think that could have stemmed from that. I've never honestly put much thought to it, but I think possibly from 0 to 7, my awareness of negativity without my understanding of what was going on definitely could have like bred this very over analytical, high verbal processing that I have now. Yeah. Because I think I feel more control now, obviously.
Yeah. And it is interesting because like relationally, she is still very close with her granny, which is her biological mom's mom. And so like when you ask about like memories and things like that, like she'll bring up things or kind of like inform we got like a one of those yellow envelopes one day when we were living in Charlotte full of like baby photos. And Grace was like, oh
which
my
this just
gosh.
shows, this is just a funny little story.
Wow.
I texted my granny one night and said, hey, could you send me a few photos of me as a baby? I meant,
it was for our gender reveal.
I meant over text real quick.
Right.
I was like, no, we were at friends' houses and they were like, what did you look like as a baby?
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
and
okay.
I was like, can you send me a few quick photos of me as a baby? I'm texting my granny who is now 85.
That's so cute.
I'm thinking she's going to text me over photos.
Right.
Of pictures. She sent them in the mail. I was like, no, I needed those 3 days ago. Like, she sent them from California. I'm like, okay, sending photos to her is a different definition than it is to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I will say too, if I can speak on the thing, like what you just asked, it's interesting because like, obviously her biological mom, like is still connected to the family.
Yeah. She's still alive.
Right.
Yeah.
But Grace has always told me that like, and I've never met her. I don't think you've seen her.
I haven't seen her since I was 7.
Yeah. Like she knows we have a kid. Maybe she's seen some photos like on Facebook and stuff. But Grace said it's more of like an acquaintance or like a stranger.
Well, I think for me, I don't feel, and this might be bad, but for me, it's like when we talk about baggage, that could be something I think I could carry along with me. Like, my biological mom is a meth addict. Woe is me. Wah, wah. But it's like my life got so much better when my dad got remarried. So it's like, sure, there are things that, also, I was not trying to mock if your parent is an addict. I'm so sorry. But my life got so much better when my dad got remarried that I realized if she was in my life would not be what it is. It's like, and I struggle a lot with, and the Bible says like honor your mother and father. And I tell him all the time, like, I feel a lot of peace with, I don't hate her. That is my level of honor. I don't hate her. I keep her somewhat up to date over Facebook Messenger, but that's it. Like, I don't have any bad thoughts. I don't want anything bad for her. I don't hate nothing. I have no feelings because I don't have any relationship, but I don't want anything horrible for her either. So it's interesting.
So interesting. I mean, we could talk. We're not counselors.
I mean, we live together and I have questions all the time. So
no, just having grace for your parents, understanding that they were raised from parents and their parents raised from parents and so forth.
Oh yeah. Well, and for her,
just realizing
generations deep on that side.
Exactly. That when you can remember that they did the best they can, even if it was crap, it's like, I forgive you. I'm not going to forget. It wasn't right. Doesn't give you a free pass because you still made decisions.
Right.
But you probably wouldn't have made those decisions if you hadn't been raised in the family that you grew up in. And so it kind of is like grace,
100%.
you know?
Well, and it's like, I didn't.
Gracie.
I didn't. And this sounds, again, I don't want to sound like I'm just breezing by it because I know that it's very heavy, you know, having an addict as a parent, it's hard. But for me, when she chose, because it wasn't like my dad took us, you know, she chose, I don't want to be a mom. I don't want to do this. And so I'm just so thankful that my dad was able to do that. And I think for me, I didn't lose anything from life. Like, I think that God really protected me from her, and she still has relationships with people in our family, my cousins and stuff. So it really, like, it sucks. And I think that she might look at photos and be like, man, I really missed out. Maybe.
Well, and she does. I mean, that's the truth, you know, for sure. She, as much as from the aspect of abandonment, which is what she did, she also, you know, left this diamond, right? The diamond was left without a ring to sit on, but she also left this diamond, and it's her loss, right? I mean, total her loss. So people, we're humans. We that's what we're trying to do, is learn from the mistakes of everybody else and try not to make the mistakes. I mean, that's the whole goal. That's why we give our testimonies, right? It's like, look, this is what either someone did to us, this is what the outcome, or this is what I did, and this was the outcome. Please don't. I'm telling you, there's a hole in the road. There's a tree in the road. Don't go that way. That's what we're doing right now, is trying to help people not suffer consequences.
Yeah. I think it taught me, too, the power of, like, choice and choosing people, you know? Because, like, my dad chose to take her 2 children that she did not want, and neither did her ex-husband. And my mom chose to marry a man with 5 kids, like, and be our mom. And so, you know, when we bring it back to marriage, it's like, no, this is a choice. Like, it's not just like, my family is not pristine, pretty. We're just the same 2 parents and the kids who are just with each other, and we're blood, so we love each other. Like, it's not that at all. It's full of people who are not related, technically strangers. Like, you know, so it just, like, really taught me, like, there's choice and, like, dedication and grit behind good relationships. Like, you have to choose that and, like, fight for it and build it. Like, it's, and I joked before that, you know, when we were talking about blending families and things like that, like, his family didn't know me for 20 years before I met them. But I'm like, neither did he didn't know me until I was 20. And so it's like, there's so much building to do. Like, there's 20 years we didn't know each other. We've known each other for 7. It's like, we have to build this truly from the ground up of like building a life together. It's not just like 2 humans who live 20 plus years of life are going to come together, and it's like,
perfect.
Well, and I see it all the time because I follow, you know, these parent accounts and things like that. And they say, like, have grace for each other and grandparents and other people, because, like, for my parents, they're first time grandparents. We're first time parents.
Life for the first time.
Exactly. And so it's like, you do have to have that grace, because it is like, you know, you can't fault anybody. I don't think anybody would intentionally do anything out of spite or to hurt or anything like that.
It's working through those issues as they come, and then how do you handle those issues as they come? You know they're coming. It's how do I handle them when my button gets pushed? Do I react or do I handle them? And that's where too some of the ways that we all grew up comes into how do I react? Do I flight or do I fight? Or what and that's why the Word of God is so powerful, because if
Totally.
you stay in it, you're going to react the proper
Exactly.
way when the arrows get, and they're
They're
going to
gonna
come.
come.
They're coming
Yeah.
daily,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
I think it's really interesting because, like, again, growing up, my family didn't really like address their issues.
Yep.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it was just kind of shoved down and you would be passive and a little bit.
That's their age, like us, our parents,
Sure.
and so forth. And
Sure.
a lot of people, we're finally getting to where we're opening up and saying, this is our garbage, this is our baggage,
It's not
this is our
embarrassing.
issue.
Everyone has it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because the more you open up and the more testimony you give, it's like, ooh,
Yeah.
I can't believe they said that. But yeah, I'm exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
how
it's-
did you get through it again?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Totally.
But it's
Thanks for
created-
saying that. You're human. Wow.
100%.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's created a bit of tension though, because I think like as we're going through things and we set boundaries and standards for our family that where expectation isn't met, she's like, hey, it's your family. I'm not going to cross that line and be disrespectful. Now she'll stand up for our daughter or for herself, and I'll stand up for my daughter and her as well. But ultimately, like, I'm going to go to my parents and say like, hey, you crossed the line.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do, right?
Sure it
And
is.
so then it creates more tension because they're like, well, you're being disrespectful and you're our son and you should do this. And it's like, well, hold on a second. Like at this point, like, and maybe I'm wrong in this. You guys tell me if we're wrong in this thinking, but like we often say like at this point, yes, I am your son, but also like I'm a grown man. Like, sorry, I almost cussed. I'm a grown ass man. I'm sorry.
Grown ass man.
Thank you. I'm like, I am a husband. I am a father. I like am my own individual. You did raise me, but like, I would say I've made a lot of great choices personally, like on top of the way that my parents have raised me, that have allowed me to live a different life than my parents. And that's not that they raised me bad or that I'm not appreciative, but when I am coming to them and I am telling them, hey, X, Y, or Z. Like, it's not because I'm being disrespectful. It's not because of this or that. And that's been something that we've had to talk a lot about because she's like, hey, I don't like this, or this has been tough, or the way I feel about this. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to bring it up.
Yeah.
But I have to.
There is a hierarchy, right? So the hierarchy is going to be, I'm starting with what does the Word of God say?
Sure.
As a Christian anyway, you're going
Right.
to put the Word of God first. The next is going to be your family right now. Your family is Gracie and your daughter.
100%.
Unfortunately, because of the hierarchy, when you got pushed out of the, as a child gets pushed out of the nest, and then they get with their spouse, the hierarchy changes. It goes from God and parents and so forth. Now the parents, that's the way it's supposed to be. They're to the side. You can honor your parents, but if they're not honoring the hierarchy, which is where you're looking first, and then your wife, I'm sorry, that's the way it's written. That
Do you
is the
think
way that
it's-
it is.
Do you think it's
So to
different though when it's the son or the daughter?
No.
Because my sister and I got married a month apart, and I feel like it's harder for me to address things than it is for my sister.
No. Now, it might be their personality, your
Okay.
parents' personality, and how they receive you or your sister.
Right.
Sure.
But you're just, there's what is truth.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so you shouldn't feel guilty.
Yeah.
And it's maybe a boundary that you have to have,
Yeah.
but you can honor until they cross into that hierarchy, which is
What you
This
guys
is
have formed.
what
You've
you've formed and
decided
where
for your
God has
family.
decided that
Yeah.
it be that way.
Well, you guys
Right.
have said something to us that has, I mean, truly, when it comes to like family issues, both sides, you guys said something to just me one time that literally has stuck with me
Ooh, I can't
since
wait.
you said it. You said you honor by being honest. And because when I was just really
100%.
struggling with like, how do I honor, my parents or his parents in
Yeah.
this when I feel like our marriage is all I want to, like, I'm ready to fight. Like, I'm ready to just be like, it is us. And you just said,
Yeah.
you honor by being honest. And so I have literally taken that with me.
Aw.
I should have put that. I didn't think about it. Y'all posted an Instagram thing of like, what's the best advice Jen and Mike have given? That would be the best advice. And it just really like helped us so much when it comes to like family conflicts with each other or with his family or my family is like the best way I can honor this relationship right now is to just be honest by what
Yeah.
I'm feeling.
Because again, if you're not honest,
It's not
you're
going
going
to
to have
grow.
resentment.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
So you could be honest gently and respectfully.
Yeah.
But and to be honest, and I learned through you guys. I learned through our young crew over here because our kids aren't married yet. And so I'm already preparing myself that when my children I always say my, because they lived in me.
They finished from you. I started them. You finished them.
Yes, whatever. So
I put them in the oven.
okay.
Oh, Lord.
This is what we do. We talk the talk. This isn't,
Right, they're your blood. He tried. Okay, I'm not even.
This is
going
not
on
a
the
G-rated
subject.
flight,
I'm not even
folks.
get on the subject.
Oh, Lord.
But
Oh, Lord.
We're talking about sex and Miss Jen cuss.
Whoa.
That is my next question. But before I get to that, I'm learning that when kids get married, the parents have to respectfully sort of take we won't say a back seat, but a side seat. Okay, we'll just call it a side seat.
Yeah.
And if a parent...
It's like those motorcycles with the little
Yes,
dog.
yes,
You mean
yes.
like they've
And
been moved from first class into like
they
Comfort
have.
Plus?
And if we've done our job as parents, which both your parents have,
Totally.
they've raised you to be good, independent, people of society that are trying to do this right. So not this completely, but kind of.
Sure.
We've done our job. So it's time to kind of step aside.
Yeah.
And
Just enjoy what's
And you
now.
do you.
Yeah.
And I think where it's hard is some parents still feel like they've got a little bit of grit because you're my son. I get that. I totally get that. But you have to be able to step back and let your kids live their life.
Mhm.
And as you become these older parents, it has to be like, okay, we can't just throw our opinions at, even Nicholas and Jade aren't married yet, but we are working on this of not throwing our opinions out to them unless they ask, because we're not raising them anymore.
Yeah.
Do we still have good advice and wisdom? Do we think so? Yes, because we've lived this life. But it's not ours to say anymore unless they want it.
Yeah.
And so there is that line, and we're hoping Michael's going to help me because I'm going to be the one that has more trouble. And I do think moms, to be honest, have more trouble with their sons than their daughters when they get married. I don't mean trouble in a bad way.
No.
But there's just a
letting go.
A letting go.
Really, truly cutting the umbilical cord.
Yeah.
Oh, see, it makes me cry.
I knew it was going to happen.
I know. Gracie knows. I'm going to cry. We know this now.
I'm surprised I haven't cried yet, honestly. I normally am.
It's just,
I welled up, but it didn't.
I'm obviously close to Jade. I'm obviously close to
Yes.
Nicholas, but there's something about the daughter and the dad and the son and the mom. And I'm going to be very good. I'm going to try. You can all hold me accountable that when Nicholas gets married and his wife wants to do things a little differently and Nicholas changes a little bit, because he will. Michael's changed. Joan would be like, well, he never used to do that or say that. I'm going to do my best to respect that. That's who he married. That's what they do. He's shifting a little.
Yeah.
Did I try to get him to be different in that way? Yes. He didn't listen to me, but he's listening to his wife.
Yeah.
Is how it should be.
Well, and I think
But
there's
it's a transition.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
hard. And so, but I think you guys are both, you're doing the right thing. You're not saying this to your parents. You're just saying, this is us. This is our unit. And that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, and I have grace because having a daughter now, it gives more perspective of
100%.
you talking about Nick, you have an idea of what it looks like for your child to be taken care of because they've been being taken care of by you.
Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden he marries someone that they've never met. They're like, we've known this girl for 2 years. Is she going to take care of our son the way we know that he needs, or we think that he needs, or that we did?
Right.
And so there's this huge level of now being a parent. It's just unlocked in me an awareness, a grace, a learning of the trust that you have in your child's spouse, or the hope for trust.
Yes.
And then you maybe see them change, and it might be things that you do like or you don't like. But ultimately you're like, I've taken care of this human for 20 something years. And now this trick is it's
right. You're not doing it right.
Yeah. I think it's easy to.
It's his job to tell you that.
I know. I think it's just easy as a parent to probably hold a little tighter than, you think that, because you're like, I just want to make sure they're taken care of. And obviously I can't expect, you hope, but there's a humility too that comes with, we got married after 2 years of knowing each other. Both sides of our family, they could love us. They do, but to be like, I trust you with my daughter's life after 2 years of knowing, that's a big decision. So it's definitely given me grace.
I believe God puts us all together. And so if Nicholas or Jade marry somebody, we've been praying for that person for a long time. God has put those people together. If there is things going in their marriage and we don't like what's happening, maybe we've coddled our kids to become who they are, and they need a little bit of that strife. God knows what they need. And that little marriage that they're going to work out, that little issue they're going to work out, even though we don't love the way it looks, it's actually going to make each one of those couples, those people more better.
Yeah. And then
to
our
honor
kids
God
will be
more.
like, you guys screwed us up, which we always said, we probably did somewhere along the way. Of course,
of course we did.
Well, and I think too, like even as Milo grows up, like I don't want to protect her from everything or try to make her marriage perfect because that's only going to create more problems down the line.
For sure.
And that's big for me saying that because I'm like, oh gosh, every argument, like we've already hashed out. I'm like, but at the same time, I'm like, it's only created because, oh my gosh, even now we say like, we'll have like late night, very long, deep conversations.
Why do they always have to happen so late?
So late. We're like, we've showered, we finished our show, and we're like, do you want to talk? And you're like, no.
It's 11 p.m.
Yes.
Like, do we have to talk now?
Yes.
Like,
and then it's like
on working hours.
Exactly. But it's helpful because she'll always end every conversation. What do you say every time?
What do I say? I'm overthinking it.
It's not that deep, but you'll say like, "Do you feel closer?"
Oh yeah, I do say that.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I do," but that's because we were honest with each other, and that brought us closer together. So every conversation, yes, they're hard, and I don't like them, and I do cry through every single one of them.
They happen so late.
They're so late. I'll work on that. Maybe we do early mornings or something. But
it's when the world's quiet. It's
Yeah.
I was
Can
listening.
We clock in for this like 8:30 a.m.
I was listening to a Jordan Peterson podcast the other day, and he says that husbands and wives should speak 90 minutes a week minimum, just face to face, nothing except face to face, 90 minutes a week.
Wow.
Just what you guys said of just, do I feel closer? Just communicate. And when you go backwards in time before you had kids and everything else, how often did you communicate with each other? All the time. No wonder it was like it was, right? You have to spend that time.
Totally.
And
Okay, so we're getting sort of close to our time, but we have just a couple more questions.
Okay.
We're going to go backwards a little bit.
That's great.
Prior to when you got married, to help some others out there. So what boundaries did you guys have in regards to sex?
Or not.
Correct. Or not. Maybe you didn't have any before you got married. And how would you do it differently if you would? Any advice for the youngins out there or whatever?
Yeah. I would say our marriage, like when we were dating, had some pretty strict boundaries and I'll be honest, I'm not necessarily ashamed of this. I was not a virgin when Jake and I met, but he was. And so there was this level of like experience that I had and progression physically that I knew in a dating relationship, and just that I didn't think it was like good, but I thought it was normal, I guess. Like, oh, you just do this and God forgives, whatever. It just was, I don't know. I went there. And so I knew when Jake and I started dating that was, I didn't want to do that again. When we first got really serious and I was like, okay, this could be the person I marry.
Right.
I would like to save myself for marriage with this person. And, we had that. I remember one time I was actually leaving a Wednesday night church and I called him because I knew he was pristine, freaking Mr. Clean as it gets. And I was not. And so I remember I called him one time and I was like, you just don't want to know anything about, do you want me to tell you anything? And he's just like, I don't care. We're just, I want to be with you. And if it comes up, it comes up. But you don't need to hash out all of your sexual history. I'm okay.
It just wasn't a deal breaker for me. Right. Because up until that, the person I had gotten to know, I loved. And I loved her without that knowledge. So knowing it or not knowing it wasn't going to be a deal breaker for me. And so I'm glad that we had the chance to talk through it, obviously, because you should talk about that. But at the same time, like I said, the person that I had gotten to know was her, not her sexual history.
Yeah.
And that sexual history was not going to be how I defined her or the way that I looked at her the rest of our relationship.
I was going to say, and I don't want this to sound like advice because it might be wrong, but I would say if you're dating and you feel like you're in the position where the guy or girl that you're dating is kind of, giving you a scorecard of what you've done in life or what you haven't done in life and basically trying to decide if you are worthy of them based on your past experience before you met them. I would just encourage you to like really pray through the discernment of that, because I was such a different person when I met Jake than I was before. And so if he were to have decided because of things I did in high school that I wasn't fit to be his wife, like I'm like, I was a teenager.
Right. I'm not marrying a high schooler, right? I'm marrying who she was. Exactly.
Yeah. So back to the boundaries and when we're dating, we did have some pretty strict boundaries. I would say like the closer that you get to your wedding date, it gets harder to keep those boundaries. But we did save ourselves for marriage. We saved a lot for marriage, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
And that ultimately led to just this whole discovery season that was really new for me, to be like married to someone and discovering your sex life, because I had dated and done that and discovered it with somebody without a ring. And like, it was just kind of felt like so permanent. And in my head, it felt backwards for some reason, but it was truly how God designed it, to discover each other and to learn each other and to be open with what you like and what you don't like and whatever. It's really interesting to, kind of figure that out together.
Yeah. So I would say from my angle of it all, as she said, no experience.
Squeaky.
I literally remember like going into our wedding, I told her, I was like, I'm kind of like scared.
Yeah, sure.
And I said like, I think I told you this, or I was telling Paul Richardson, he did our marriage counseling and he married us. I think I told him, I was like, I'm nervous that like, even when we get married and we like do that, like have sex for the first time, am I going to feel guilty? Because it was something so foreign to me. And I've heard my whole life, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And so then I'm like, am I going to feel guilty? Because like, oh my gosh, we walk down an aisle and we look really good and we put a ring on our finger, and then all of a sudden you're just allowed.
Go get naked.
Whoa, like that's crazy to think. And so, but then it was like, I don't want to feel shame for that, because that is the person and the decision that I made. And so got past that. I think as she said, like, there was a period of time where we were long distance for 11 months, and she would fly out to Texas and come and visit me for weekends. And then
I did not stay with him in his apartment.
Yeah, she did not stay with me. Yeah, she did not stay with me. But we got to a point where we were 2 months out from our wedding, and she moved out to Texas and lived with a family out there. And that was really hard, because we were adults
that we had together.
Yeah.
But like, because we had dated for a few months before we moved to Austin.
Yeah.
Then we got engaged long distance. So this is the longest amount of time we had together.
Yeah.
Like uninterrupted, Wow. So then I'm like, oh.
And so exactly. And so it's like, we were grown adults that at that point, living in a totally different place. We only knew each other. So like, we could have been like, you know what? It's a 15-minute drive home. Just stay with me. But we had to we had to be strict. Also because I was working at a church. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was a freaking kids pastor, and I did not want to compromise anything. And it's hard. You have to make the decision. Yeah. And I'm not discrediting anyone's past decisions or anything like that. But Gracie and I always say, even as a married couple, I'm sorry, it does not just happen.
No, it doesn't. I was actually about to say
you have to take your clothes off.
You have to get together first.
Thank you.
The movies are so wrong. I'm like to just lay in bed together.
It does not just happen. I'm sorry. Right. Even 5 years into marriage, it is like, put it on the calendar. Let's but you know what I mean? Like you have to
it's an effort.
It is
an effort. So I'm like it again. I know that there are circumstances, people. There are moments that it does happen, but like it is a choice.
Yeah.
Right. No matter how hard it is a choice. Whether you're under the influence of something or you are with somebody and you feel like you love them, it is a choice, and it is a hard choice to say no. There were so many times that we were finishing a movie and could have done whatever, whenever. But we just said no.
So I want you to speak to this very quickly. Are you super happy you waited?
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you look back, as I'm 55, I look back and I'm like, I know I'm forgiven. I know there's grace. Fine. Totally great. But I don't want those memories. I don't like having those memories.
Yeah.
And so it pisses me off that I made the decision to not have boundaries and to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I know, like, okay, I'm forgiven, just like any other sin I've ever done. But I don't like the memories.
Yeah,
I don't like them. I don't like the picture in my mind.
Totally.
And that's the part that, from a boundary perspective, hearing from a young person, I don't know if I'm different than you, because obviously you've just said, I would do it differently, right? I
Totally.
would totally do it differently because I want it to be with just her.
Yeah,
That's
and I think
it. I
for
don't want
me-
any other memories.
For me personally, me making those decisions, it's not something that affects our marriage or our sex life. It's more so exactly what you said. I hate having that memory.
Correct.
I hate having the visual. I
Yep.
hate when, like something reminds me of
Yep.
an ex I had, and I'm like, oh, they saw me naked. Why? Like, it really is. It sounds silly, but I just the deeper side is I hate that anybody else had me that way other than my husband.
Yes.
Sure. More so, the surface is truly just like ick with myself of like,
Right.
why did I hate remembering that person who has no value to me now. I mean, they got me to where I'm at, but they're not
Sure,
No,
my
I
life,
understand
you know?
completely.
It's
And I
just
think
like,
that our perspective, though, is a Christian perspective. It's a perspective of we have our belief systems. This is the way that we believe. And so when there's these, let's say they're rules, because that's really what a lot of people like to say, the Bibles are rules.
Yeah, sure.
No, they're protections because
Yeah.
the
100%.
protections of I don't want to have these memories later, and I do.
yeah.
That's the consequence
Because they're
of
not
what.
his. He's
Right.
not replaying
Right.
that
Anything.
about me.
Right,
He's
right.
not like,
Yeah.
I wish my wife didn't. I hate that she
It's
did
the
that. It's me.
consequences that
Yeah.
we brought on ourselves.
So before Michael asks these quick little
Yes.
snippets.
Oh, wait, I
will
had one
say-
more thing on
Oh,
sex
sure.
I wanted to say.
Yeah, I was
before we
going to
move
say
on.
on sex too. I
Oh.
will say that's a whole other. I mean, you could go deep into that topic of there's a lot. I'll just say it quickly. A lot of you believers out there that have not had sex, you're virgins, you're waiting. That's great. That's how God intended. But, and we've said this before on the podcast, I believe. I kind of remember saying it. This happens a lot with what you said. Am I going to feel guilty? Am I going to? And, sex is great. God created
Yeah,
sex.
sure.
It's wonderful. It's great, but within the confines of what he says is
Yeah, of
perfect.
course.
Mhm.
So just, I love that you said that about that you were nervous that you'd feel guilty because some parents don't do it the right way and they don't do it and they don't really give a reason why.
Mhm.
Let go of some of that.
Yeah.
Still stay pure and true to what you want to do,
Yeah.
but let go of that because it's great. It's
Yeah.
what God
Yeah.
intended.
No, I mean, it's the
Yeah.
ultimate Disney World. It's fine.
Yeah.
Finally, I'm going to Disney World.
Yeah.
I've been waiting my whole life. I'm going to
Yeah.
Disney World. I'm
Yeah.
not guilty. I'm not feeling anything except,
Yeah.
man, I'm going to ride the
Yeah.
rides.
Yeah.
We also
Right.
never.
Oh, wow, babe.
Sorry, I'll say this really quick. We
Excuse
also.
the pun.
Right.
We-
right.
Oh
See?
Oh my
See?
gosh.
we also a lot of people like to glamorize sex and like their engagement period and their parties are all around drinking straws out of wieners and weird things like that. It's true. I mean,
It's
Wiener.
true.
okay, but
true.
it's what they do. We just didn't do that. Like it wasn't this like glamorized like
Right.
thing that we were getting married to check that box. You know what I mean?
Right, of
And I think that made that feel so much more special and
Yeah.
intimate for us because it was something we were looking forward to together and not sharing like nobody at our wedding was like, you guys go after it. Like it was just
Right.
like, wow, what a
You
beautiful
know what
night.
you're going to do.
Go-
And exactly.
Thank you. Like
was-
we were
Yeah.
mature about it.
Yeah,
Right.
it was.
Real quick, this is is this okay? Is my sound okay? Okay. I just noticed it's
it
really low.
dropped again.
Yeah. I wanted to say
Gracie's
that.
like,
I
"Oh, here I am."
no.
Lucky she's little.
You want to tilt it up towards you a little bit? Yep.
There we go.
Okay. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I wanted to say similar to what you guys were just saying. I think if you're engaged right now or if you're dating and sex is something that's just it's naturally on the mind. And I don't want to sound like so corny, but for, just a quick note take, I would say think of sex as less of like this dream destination and more of like, you're going to have sex the rest of your marriage.
Yeah.
It is a journey that you're going to figure out. And the first time is not going to be fireworks
Right.
amazing. And one of the things I'm really grateful that we did, and not to like peel back the curtain too much, but we did feel a lot of pressure behind it because everyone's talking about it. And especially guys are like, yeah, bro, you're about to go have sex. Like,
Yeah.
you're just like, okay. We really, when we got to the hotel, took it so slow.
Oh, yeah.
And we just took a shower and like I got out of my wedding dress and I had a sweaty spray tan. Like I didn't want to like just
We weren't
go-
ripping nothing off. It was like
It
very
wasn't like
slow.
that. And if it is like that fireworks ripping the dress off, that's amazing. Like I love the passion. But for
Yeah.
us, like whatever it
expect
is.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it might
That's
not
great.
be that. And we have a friend who obviously I won't name her, but she thought it was going to be like ripping the lingerie and biting and blah.
Oh,
like
wow.
she thought it was going to be all these
terrifying.
crazy, I don't know, like just like
That's years
aggression,
later.
maybe not biting, but just like the aggression, you know, and just
Right.
like passion.
The movie.
And
Yeah, the movie.
And
Exactly.
she was like nervous that she was disappointing her husband because she was like, I don't feel sexy and I don't feel like I met your expectation because you think that. And so,
Gosh, I'm glad you talked.
Yep.
yeah,
I'm glad
Paul
you're
and
talking about that.
Angela,
Very glad you talked about.
Paul and Angela did a really great job at talking to us just about like, talk about your wedding night and what you expect it to be and how can that be
Totally.
a safe environment where you know what each other is expecting that night. Because I think that we both were like, I want to shower. I want to put on some like jammies or maybe lingerie or whatever, but like I want to shower my sweat off. I want to pause and maybe if you need to eat a protein bar, I don't know, like just take a minute.
Yeah,
like
right.
Exactly.
take a minute if you need to and don't just rush into it because there are phases of life where our sex life is amazing and it's awesome. But then there are times where, like, I would say our first move to Charlotte, we both had really like rigorous jobs for the first time and it kind of went down and, you know, it goes up and it goes down. And I just think there's so much hype around your wedding night,
that's so
but
true.
you get in at 1 a.m. and then you're waking up for a flight at 4 a.m. the next day.
Yeah.
We
You
didn't
know,
even
just
have
be
sex our
realistic.
wedding night.
Yeah, a lot of people
I
don't.
don't remember.
Yeah.
I do.
I don't remember.
And that's okay. We're super tired. And the other thing I like to tell people is you're not ever going to wake up in the morning and start making out.
No.
Ew,
You have
no.
morning breath.
Yeah.
It is not
Maybe
the movies.
some people
Yeah.
do, but
I mean, you can roll over and grab a mint real fast, but it's,
and I'll say for me,
so
and
true.
I know I keep going on this, but like when I was dating, I think something that I have felt in marriage is like when you're dating and you're experimenting with sex, it feels exciting because you know you're not supposed to be doing it.
So true.
It's like this feels bad. This
Yeah.
feels
That's a great
like I
point.
want when you mentioned the like
That's-
making out in the morning. Oh, if I had a sleepover with my boyfriend, I probably am making out in the
Yeah.
morning because this feels bad and my parents don't know
Right.
I'm here and
Yes.
whatever. But when you're in your marriage and you're safe and you just feel like you can let your walls down,
Yeah.
it might not feel as I don't want to say
Performance-y.
yeah, it's not as like you're not breaking any rules. You just have the rest of your life to make really a
Yeah.
lot of beauty from it that you don't feel this like, I guess performance or like, I don't want to say excitement because it is exciting, but you know what I'm saying? When
Yeah.
you're dating and you're experimenting with sex and you're doing all of that, I think it just feels so riveting. Like you're like, this is so, like this is
Forbidden
exciting.
fruit.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
Right.
No, that's exactly, it. Yeah.
Exactly. And so when I got married, I will say like that was something that was like, oh, when I was like dating guys, like I felt, I don't know, there are things in marriage that I'm like, I don't want to do that I probably wouldn't have questioned as a teenager, but I'm like
Right.
Yeah.
a horny teenager.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So I would say, I don't know, if you like get to marriage and you've been there, like I think that's so normal because you feel safe. It's different.
Yeah. And I'll say on the practical side, if you are planning a honeymoon, do not book a cruise.
Don't book a cruise.
Yeah.
Because good Lord, it's two full beds pushed together. And so the crack in the
So
middle just doesn't
you're
work
doing
as
it
you're
on a twin
exploring.
bed.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
That's good
You're just
advice.
doing it on
I
a
never-
twin bed.
It's cheap and it's awesome because you pay at the beginning and
But
then
not
everything's
good.
is available to you on the cruise ship.
A lot of
But
people
oh
are
my gosh,
changing their plans as they should.
Yeah.
the rooms are too small and the showers are not big enough. So
That's good.
That's
all you need to know.
The part
That's
is
good. I
though,
like it.
and if y'all want to cut this out, that's fine. But they pick up your towels for you. So
that's true.
Oh gosh, I love it.
poor room tenant
see-
was probably like,
See how we've made them so comfortable?
That's right.
At first
That's our
they're like,
goal.
you guys, and now
our
they're
goal.
just TMI.
Yeah, okay,
Let's have
we'll move
rapid fire,
on.
babe.
We'll move on.
So here we
Rapid
go.
fire.
These are
This
rapid
is
fire.
5 minutes to go.
Okay.
It's called, because we're aviation theme, how not to skid off the runway.
Uh-oh.
Best advice when dealing with. You have 1 minute answer.
oh,
Best advice when dealing with. And I'll just go you. Social media usage. Best advice. Social media usage. 1 minute.
Best advice, social media usage. It is not something that I have ever personally felt like is like a struggle or anything like that. I would say if you are dating or married, obviously, maybe I shouldn't say obviously because a lot of people might not know this. Don't interact with other married individuals. Gracie's best friends are some of my good friends. Jade and Megan are some of my good friends.
Yeah.
I don't message them on social media. I don't need to, right? If I need to communicate with them, I can send them a text that includes Gracie, or I will make sure I let Gracie know that something, that I am messaging one of them. Jade and I talk about helping find me a job all the time. Jade sends me jobs. I respond to her. It's very cordial, friendly. Other social media things, it's like, you shouldn't be posting thirst traps, right? Like not thirst traps.
What's that?
Like,
This is not going to fall within the minute.
this is going to fall in the minute. Anyways, you shouldn't be like, as a married individual, like posting content that's going to get other people to be interested in you physically.
His wife is an influencer. I'm like,
No. But like, you're not like out there, like you're not posting bikini pics as a married woman, enticing other men to comment or like what's going on.
Let's say you're not married, but you guys are together. You're a couple.
Right.
Would you have those same rules? Would you have those same...
Babe, you're going way past a minute.
I know, but
you might have to cut these down.
I think social media is a choice. It's hard because it's like, I know what people struggle with and deal with on social media. It's never been an issue of mine where I'm like secretly scrolling and liking other girls' photos or watching their TikToks and things like that. It's just not something I'm interested in.
But that's a big deal with people.
Yes. Like,
that's why he's saying
it's their escape. Right. It's their escape to go and like, prime example. I literally was watching a TikTok last night it's a TikTok live of this girl who is taking $10 cash apps from her followers for this girl to FaceTime their boyfriends and flirt with them to see if she can catch them cheating.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's prime example like that. Me, I'm like, that is so crazy. If I ever got a phone call or a text message from another girl, I'm like, babe, this is weird. But most guys wouldn't do that because the girl was attractive and they got her, like the guy got her attention. Wow. I think that's people struggle on social media.
Gotcha.
To me, just don't even follow it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay. It is hard because social media does have an algorithm. I know I'm going way over 60 seconds, but they have an algorithm. So let's say you look up something,
it's going to continue.
It's going to continue.
Right.
So just don't even go down that route. If you have to set boundaries and things like that on social media, I don't even know how you do that. Restrictions and things like that. I know how you do it for kids on like YouTube, but I'm like, you're a grown ass adult. Right. Don't do it.
And the main thing is having communication between the two of you on what is really what is right.
Totally.
Not right. All right. Number 2.
Yeah.
Family issues. 1 minute. Family issues. Best advice when dealing with family issues.
I would say what I said earlier that Jen and Mike have said to me one time is that the best way to honor family is to be honest. And I think that in the same way that you want to protect your marriage from resentment and from secrecy and from creating distance from things that you maybe don't want to talk about, you owe your family that same regard to build the relationship to be as strong as it can be. Obviously, there are so many families that have a lot of toxicity. So I want to be careful with my words that there are situations where maybe you excommunicate and you don't have relationships at all. But for us and ours, I would say to honor your unit first. Everything we do is for our unit. It's not that Jake is asking his parents to do something to appease me. It is, we agree on this as husband and wife. This is what, we need to talk about. And so that would be my biggest advice, is to make sure that as a wife to your husband or as a husband to your wife, you're not just asking for things to change just because it's different from what you experienced. You're like, I just don't like it. But if it is a small force coming against your marriage, it's messing up your unit. It's messing up your flow together, and you need to set a boundary. You approach it from that place. Jake wouldn't go to his parents and say, Gracie doesn't like it when.
Right.
Of course not.
Absolutely.
Just being straight up and honest with
Or me
family.
saying, I would never say, Jake doesn't like it when you do this, Dad. Like, that's putting me and Jake not as a team. It's putting my
100%.
dad versus Jake.
Yeah.
So I would just encourage you to always figure out what your unit thinks, you and your husband, you and your family, and then approach family that way.
Totally.
Hey, our marriage, this is what we value, and this is what you do that's threatening that.
And that's kid advice for you guys when Milo says, Dad thinks this, Mom thinks this. Nope. Dad and Mom are going to talk about it, and then you go in the corner, and then we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Number 3, money.
Money. What about it?
Best advice.
Best advice?
When dealing with money. Now you guys are together. It all goes in the pot. No selfishness.
Yeah, I would say combining bank accounts obviously is really big. I know a lot of people don't do that.
Okay.
And I think that creates resentment and doesn't create a lot of trust. I think that like whenever we do things, it's our money. I think language is really big around that. It's not whenever we were working. I mean, Gracie's always been the breadwinner in our family. I'm not ashamed of that. She works really hard. She has 3 to 4 streams of income at all times. I've worked in ministry and we know that that's not the most, financially stable thing. But the Lord provides. And so I think that like language is really big around money. It's our money. We work together to provide for our family. It's not one over the other.
Okay.
I think that's been
best
big
advice when dealing with stress.
Best advice when dealing with stress. I would say for me, we kind of talked about he's flighty. I'm a bit more like fiery and I'm ready to chat through it. So when I get stressed, I'm aggravated at everything. I am ready to be frustrated. I think if you can almost like narrate your own life with your partner or with your spouse or whatever, it helps so much for me to say, narrate the moment. Hey, I'm really stressed today. This is what I need from you. This is what I don't need from you. To just put it out there rather than, I'm just so stressed. Leave me alone. Like take a moment and like narrate
Share
your moment
feelings.
a little bit. Yeah, but I have to think of it like, if somebody else were to come in and tell Jake what I'm feeling, that's what I need to do. That calmly, like, hey, I'm feeling really overwhelmed at this moment. I need you to not talk to me. I need you to not touch me. I need a moment by myself. I'm going to go close our door. I'm going to go do this. And I need you to not talk to me.
Good.
Rather than just like reactive. I'm not always perfect at it, but I do try to.
I've never understood when guys say girls are hard to read because she just tells me exactly what to do.
That's good advice. Girls,
I'm an open book
talk.
in multiple languages.
Yeah.
Best
Anybody can read me.
advice when dealing with your faith.
I think that one of the biggest things in dating, we recognized very early on that our faith was not contingent upon each other. So we did not do Bible studies together. We went to church together. We prayed together sometimes, but we made sure that our faith was very separate during our dating period because if something didn't work out, my faith was not contingent because I was in a relationship with Gracie. So my faith or her faith should not drop off if one or the other were to split from the relationship. When we got married, obviously we know that we like combined and we are one. And so our faith is a little bit more contingent upon each other, but it's not the end all be all.
Well, you're married. You're
yes,
married.
Exactly.
The Trinity.
Yes. I think that there's always room for improvement. I think that there is, this concept, especially in Christian culture, where like things are going to be perfect and you're going to wake up and worship music's going to be playing in your house and all these things. And there are going to be seasons where you can't find the balance in reading your Bible in the morning and getting quiet time and praying together. Because I'll tell you, it's hard. I've talked to some of my guy friends. It is a little awkward to sit and pray with your wife sometimes because you want it to sound
on the season.
Yeah, you want it to sound beautiful and perfect and all of this, but it's hard. But then you'll go through seasons like for us, we had a long time of trying to get pregnant and going through fertility procedures, and our faith was so fused at that time because we had to that's all we had was like this hope in Jesus that he was going to provide growth for our family. And so I would just say it's recognizing that your faith is your own first. And then when you're married, building on that, because if both are lacking, obviously like it's going to be hard.
Right.
But then as you come together, recognizing it's not always going to look beautiful.
Well, you guys, thanks. Well, this has been awesome. I feel like we could talk for another 5 hours.
Episode 2?
We really could. But thanks so much because, again, for everybody listening, getting the perspective and listening to all these couples that we're going to have going into the future and who we have had, it's so refreshing. It's so just wonderful. Everybody comes from a different family. And to hear the perspectives and to go through this stuff, just the testimonies are fantastic. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
guys.
As usual, for our audience, thanks for joining us. Please subscribe, like. I have that statement, gear down, clear to land. That's the same. I get tired of subscribe and like. So I'm changing it to gear down, clear to land.
Love it.
I love
It's
it.
the
Don't know what that
aviation
means.
theme.
But
I know. It means subscribe and like.
love it.
I'm changing the world.
I love it. Just like
So-
in the plane, press the red buttons and you'll get to
You'll
the
be
right
safe.
spot. Yeah.
So everybody, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye.